All right, here we go. It's my honor to have Craig Hodges, two-time NBA champion with the Bulls, two-time three-point contest winner, and lifetime social activist. Welcome to Vlad TV.
Oh man, it's an honor and a privilege, brother. And I've seen your work from afar, and the fact that you have some very conscious people is something I think is needed and necessary, combined with all the madness that's going on in the mainstream media during this period of time when we need consciousness and truth, especially with the pandemic. And for us, we have to make sure that we come out of this a much more stronger, mature people, and willing to make some not only sacrifices, but I think it's time for us to come together on a whole nother level, man.
I definitely agree, and thank you for those compliments. So, this is our first time here. Let's go ahead and start in the beginning. So, you grew up in Chicago Heights.
Right. And, during that period of time, I tell people how blessed I was for my soul to come down in the Hodges household, to come down in where I grew up at Lincoln Highway and Fifth Avenue is considered the term during the 60s was it was the crossroads of the nation. That Lincoln Highway went cross country, and that we saw a lot. We saw a lot of things during the 60s, especially from the standpoint of progress that was made through struggle, through us realizing at a time, especially our parents and grandparents who realized that they wanted us to have a better life. And the only way we could do that was through protests and through civil rights moves that were made. And I was blessed that my family was a part of that, and that put me on a path that I think a lot of people, when they looked at my career, they would look back and be like, man, why did you get on that? But it was something that I was blessed to have, and it became a passion of mine early in life.
Okay, and your mom was heavily involved in the civil
Absolutely.
rights movement.
Absolutely. And to me, when I remember in a marketing campaign, Charles Barkley talked about him not being a role model. And I could understand where he was coming from because I did have those primary role models in my life. My mom was the secretary for the Civil Rights Organization. My granddad was part of the union organizing during the 60s. So I was blessed to have a social consciousness within the household that was not always pressed upon you, but it was always inferred. And you would see by some of the movements that were going on, whether it be granddad doing his organizing or whether me going with my mom to, the civil rights movement meetings, and to be able to sit there and listen and see real life leadership, not something that was kind of coaxed upon you or something that was taught to you, but something that you grew up as part of your childhood. And that part of my life was as important as, playing baseball, because during that time we would have times when we didn't really know that we were actually boycotting anything. We were just going out handing flyers, and we had a stack of flyers that we had to hand out before we could go play baseball. So it was a good balance for me.
So, growing up as a black kid in the 60s
Right.
in Chicago, what type of racism did you personally experience during that time?
So much was inferred, and we were insulated. We were insulated to the point where when we would go play baseball for Little League and we had to cross Halsted Street, if anyone's familiar with Halsted, it runs the length of the city and some of the suburbs. And Chicago Heights is the beginning of Halsted Street that runs all the way north through the city. So Halsted Street was a demarcation line of white and black. So we were told when we were younger, make sure you're back on the other side of Halsted before it gets dark. Not really realizing what it meant until a couple of times when we would be walking through the Forest Preserve, and white guys a little older than us would chase us back across Halsted Street. So, it was one of those things growing up. It was inferred, and, you would go, my mom would take us to downtown Chicago Heights, and we couldn't sit at the lunch counter. We would see little kids sitting there eating their ice cream and chilling, and while their mom is shopping, and I had to be at my mom's hip because it was just that period of time. And those types of things, when I stop and look at it, that you were actually growing up under Jim Crow, you know what I'm saying? And that to see where we are now, I'm 59 years old, and to know that those battles and many of them, so when I look at this whole pandemic thing and they say the underlying causes, but we don't want to get to the underlying causes of the systemic white supremacy racism that's at the root of all our issues.
Well, you mentioned your mother and your grandfather. Where was your father around during this time?
My pops was the mayor of Fort Heights, which is the next suburb from Chicago Heights. And for me, watching him, and it was somewhat from afar because he wasn't in our household. I was in the household with my granddad and my uncles. That was my primary male role models. But I didn't have a dysfunctional relationship with my father. It was a one of honor, one of honor and respect because he held a position within the community that was important and necessary. And that, not that he was held on any pedestal, but it was an understanding and respect level throughout the community of what he was doing in the city of East Chicago Heights at that time. And it was just, and that's the thing that is hard to galvanize and to feel if you weren't a part of it. The only thing I can liken it to is during that period of time when Barack was just getting his feet wet and starting to get his support, that you could start to feel a palpable pulse in the community that was starting to vibrate similar to what it was during the 60s. But it still wasn't comparable because it was watered down because it did have the political thread of the white supremacy racism that's throughout the governmental policies and seats, wherever you may sit, you still have that foundation under you.
Well, you mentioned playing baseball early on.
Yes.
At what point did you start playing basketball?
I played basketball all the time, but baseball was my love, man. Baseball was the thing that my granddad told me when I was 6 years old that the quickest way to the big show or to be a professional was to be a catcher. So on my 6th birthday, he gave me all of the catcher's gear, and I caught from the time I was 6 until I was probably 15 years old, man. And it was just boring to me because the game was so slow and Chicago was so hot in the summer. So to have on all that gear, man, it was one of those things where I was good at it. I loved the game, but the game of basketball was something that was interactive. It was more exciting. It was play to play to play to play. That it was a transitional thing about it that I liked. And tennis was also something that was early in my life that I did a lot of. And we were blessed that during that period of time to have had access through programs that the park ran. And my granddad was the park manager at a couple of parks. And it was one of those things where my uncles taught me the proper way to play sports, but my aunts always, and my sister told me that I was never going to get to play any sports if my books weren't tight. So there was a student athletic component within the household that lent itself to me being able to get recruited to go play basketball.
Okay. Like at what point, like what age did you know, okay, like I'm really better than everyone else around me?
And the thing about it was never, and I think those are the great things is that when you have a support base of different things. So I had a support base in the athletics and the students, but I also had a support base that was a challenging base. I had a Raymond McCoy, who was the #1 point guard in America. He and Isaiah were neck and neck. So me and Raymond grew up together, and Raymond was always the golden one, the one that was going to be the pro. So I had to grow up in that shadow, and in that shadow was where I needed to be because I was a skinny, scary cat that I was a wallflower. I didn't want nobody to see my progress. And probably when we moved from Chicago Heights to Park Forest, and I had to go and now compete against where I grew up, it became a thing of both confidence and becoming more courageous in how I played the game. And to be able to have the challenge of being as good as Raymond, being able to be recruited. For me, it was between my sophomore and junior year, I averaged about 25 points a game on the sophomore team. I played 2 games of varsity, and that's another story. After that summer, my uncle told me that all he wanted me to was to catch and shoot the ball. I was doing a lot off the dribble, and that's where I honed in my shooting skills a lot more. Not that I couldn't shoot the ball when I was in 6th grade, but everything, I was a guard. So I worked on my ball handling and my shooting, but I became more concentrated in my focus on shooting between my sophomore and junior year, and it paid dividends, man. To this day, that was the year that set my shooting to a point where it became understandable in my own psyche of how to make the ball go in the basket almost every time if I didn't get fouled. And if it didn't go in, I knew those reasons why. And that's the part for me that year. And I had great coaching, man. Steve Fisher was my high school coach who coached the Fab Five and coached San Diego State to, coach Kawhi Leonard. So I've had great coaching, man. And through that coaching, you've been able to have your own creativeness and to be able to see why you do certain things and where you can lend that to the big part of making you where your game is whole and complete.
Right, because you're 6'2", right?
Yes. Now I was 6'2", but now I'm probably 6'1" with these knees, brother.
Right. I mean, these days the average height of an NBA player is 6'7". I'm sure
Right.
it was probably a little bit less back then, but still
Right.
6'2" is shorter than most NBA players. So
Right.
you really had to be a beast out there to make your mark.
And that's the thing is that, when we look at this social media and the way the game is critiqued, it was a different generational critiquing. It was more, I tell people the best players during the period of time we came through were on the corner who were drinking wine, smoking weed, doing drugs because they couldn't conform. But when you get them on the court, they had monster game. So it was a level of conformity. Well, now a lot of that conformity is if you can hoop, you can hoop, and people are going to allow you to play, and you're going to be able to bring a certain amount of whatever your personality baggage might be, and get away with it because we're in this era of the game where the players control the game to such a degree that a lot is allowed that would not have even been tolerated during the period of time that we were coming through the game, maturing in the game, and definitely on a professional level. When I see some of the things that have gone on in the past, whether it be professional players throwing up gang signs, what is all that about? To me, it's a whole different level of consciousness that we played the game with. And I think the music has a lot to do with it. And I tell people all the time, the music and the manner in which the cultural influences during time, so you see those waves dictate themselves within the context of the game.
Okay, so you end up going to Long Beach State,
Yes,
and you played under Tex Winter.
absolutely, man. To me, he's like my granddad, and I know they're both in heaven talking talking about sports and everything else, man. So it's one of those things where, for me, Tex Winter recruited me when I was probably 16 after my sophomore year at Rich East, in fact, and he wanted me to go to Northwestern, and I told him at that point, Coach, I'm trying to get as far away from these winters as possible, and he got the job at Long Beach State my senior year. And came to me. I was one of his first recruits from Chicago. He took four of us out there with him, and it was a blessing, man, to be able to. I grew up watching the UCLA, championships under John Wooden and seeing them guys come out in T-shirts and shorts after games. That was appealing to me. It looked like it was fun, and so when he got the job at Long Beach and he offered me a scholarship, I jumped at it. And he'd say, Craig, you can't sign right away. I'm like, I want to sign before you get a scholarship to somebody else, but it was a blessing because it gave me a chance to study what I grew up under. I grew up in a reality of social consciousness, grew up in a reality of civil rights, and then to get a chance to go to Long Beach on a basketball scholarship. Unbeknownst to me at the time, it was going to be the most critical move I made from an intellectual end, from a chance to study, from an academic end, to get a chance to study under Dr. Maulana Karenga, the founder of Kwanzaa, Dr. Khalid Muhammad, Dr. Amin Ra, and the list goes on in as far as the influence and impact they had on me in developing research method into solutions that can change the condition of all your people worldwide, not just African and African Americans, but African Brits, African Australians. Wherever we may be, we all have that we carry that same thread of culture and kinship. And I could never thank Tex enough to be able to have had that. A lot of people, and so when we look at some of the moves I made, whether it's going to the White House, whether wearing a dashiki to the White House, or some of the stance that I've taken, it was not out of character. You know what I'm saying? It was how I was taught. It was how I was raised. And a lot of people wasn't raised the way I was.
Well, you graduated in 1982.
Yes.
And then you joined the draft.
Yes.
and you got picked up by the San Diego Clippers.
Absolutely. And once again, you look at those moves that were made earlier. They put you in a position to be drafted. I look at the moves, whether it be a high school game that Tex Winter saw me play as a sophomore that wanted him to recruit me, and then that went to Long Beach. My senior year, I played a game at San Diego State, and the Zach Jones was one. It was the three top guards on the West Coast was Dwight Anderson, Craig Hodges, and Zach Jones. And Zach Jones played at San Diego State, and we were playing them in San Diego Arena. And that was probably one of my best shooting nights of my career. I was 13 for 13, had 26 points, not knowing that Paul Silas was watching from the top, who was the coach for the San Diego Clippers. And when I got drafted, Paul told me the story of how he came to the game with Zach Jones being the guard that he wanted to select because he had watched Zach play and only had never seen me play. And he said when he saw me shoot the basketball without dribbling it, he said he wanted me on his team. And then when I got to the Clippers, I was the 48th player picked in the draft overall. And during that time, it was 10 rounds. The first 2 rounds came on ESPN. So my family, and to go back, 1982 was the first year that they had the pre-draft camp. So I was blessed to be an alternate in the pre-draft camp. So having graduated, the pre-draft camp was going to be in Chicago. So Tex, who was part of the selection committee, told me if I came home, I would have more of a chance as an alternate if someone didn't show up, that they would bring me in. So sure enough, I'm sitting Park Forest, 30 minutes from downtown Chicago. In the morning of the pre-draft camp, I get a call from Tex about 12 o'clock, and he tells me, yeah, player didn't show up. How soon can you? And before he could say anything, I clicked the phone, and I'm at the Hyatt Regency asking him, hey, coach, I'm here. He's like, what did you catch, a helicopter? I was like, no, man, I've been ready for this opportunity. And to get a chance to go on the pre-draft camp and see Red Auerbach, Jerry West, John Havlicek, all the greats that were there combined to watch young players that were potential draft candidates. And I had a good camp, and the Clippers ended up picking me, and I got a chance to play for Donald Sterling, of all people, and to see how the whole the circles of life, man, and to see how he was part and parcel of the racial profile of the NBA in so many ways, and so many ways that the NBA doesn't want to look at that through a real true lens, man.
Did you see the hints of racism when you played under Sterling?
I was taught probably my second day of meeting Bill Walton. He saw something in me that he liked, and he told me I was going to be player rep. No rookies are ever player rep over veterans. But anyway, he told me, he said, you know, it's something about you that I like, and always remember this. Stay the hell away from management. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm a rookie. You Bill Walton, you know better than me. So it was almost a thing to me when I saw management. I went the other way. As a young player, I never interacted with management. So I saw Donald Sterling from afar. There was a time when he signed a check, or whoever signed our check, and we went to the bank, and it wasn't there until the next week. It was stuff like that happened, within the organization that was, but his history was one of a slumlord, and I studied that, so I kept my base where I needed to be, and I was traded out when we moved to LA, and I was glad of it, man.
Well, here you are, a kid growing up in Chicago, and you get to the point of making money from sports for the first time ever.
Teach.
At the point that you get your first contract and the money starts coming in, what changed in your life?
Well, got married, started a family, and I think for me, when we look at the money, man, I came in on the minimum contract in 1982. And like right now, I'm sure it's going to be profound for a lot of this generation to understand what the minimum salary in 1982 was $40,000. All right.
Wow.
It was $40,000. My first contract, my first 3 years in the NBA was 40, 45, and $55,000. All right. Now, the kicker in that is that they were make good contracts, meaning you had to be, in order for that $40,000 to be guaranteed, you had to be on the team on Christmas Day. All right. And on Christmas Day, the rest of your money was guaranteed. So those are the type of constraints that young players don't understand when you talk about pressures. Not the pressures of just playing, but the pressures of maintaining a contract level of play. You follow me? So now we go from that to realizing that this is a business. So the business of it didn't touch me until that point in time when I could reach $1 million, which was at that period in my career when we went to the White House, and I never got a chance to do that.
Well, I just want to put this in context because
Yes.
I looked it up as you were talking.
Yes.
You had a minimum contract of $40,000.
Yes, in 1982.
In 1982. In 2020,
Yes.
the minimum NBA contract is $900,000.
Now, let me say this for me, myself, and Mahmoud Abdul Rauf, and all the other brothers who may have had some type of grievance against the NBA. Just give us, in retribution, those type of funds. A minimum contract, bro. That's crazy. And you know, but it shows the power of the Players Association also within that, and the power of players. So when I look at the transference of Michael Jordan going from player to owner, and the fact that you want to roll back those type of things, that you want to roll back salaries, and not that you're an owner, but you were power when you were a hooper, you wanted that fund to be as much as you could for players. So that's the economics. That's the economics of the progression of the dollar and the impact of sport in not only America, but in global economics.
Okay, so you get traded from the Clippers
Yes.
in '84, and you join the Bucks
Right.
at that point.
Right.
How's that experience?
You know, it's so crazy, man. I've had all kind of coaching, and I feel blessed to have had all the kind of coaching because when I was traded from San Diego to Milwaukee, two of my teammates, Terry Cummings and Ricky Pierce, were also in the trade. And they got there for the first practice, and I got there for the evening practice. So as I'm coming into the hotel, I see Terry and Ricky, and they tell me, man, this dude is crazy. And I'm laughing to myself. So I see Terry, and they're like, man, this is the craziest practice we ever had in our life. And I'm like, how bad could it be? So I go up to Don Nelson's suite, and he tells me, he's like, hey, welcome. I'm like, oh, cool to be here, man. He's like, did everything go well getting there? I'm like, yeah, everything's fine. He was like, yeah, I could have made the deal to get Terry and Ricky Pierce a couple years ago, but I wanted to make sure I got you in the deal because I think you're going to have a long career. You got a sturdy body type and all of this. He said, but can you handle me cussing your ass out? And I started laughing. He was like, okay, I'll see you in about 45 minutes. So go to practice. And we start practice, and he has me literally doing defensive slides for the first hour of practice, half of them by myself. And then I told myself, I see why the brother said this dude is so crazy. But Don Nelson was probably the strictest coach in training camp of any coach in the league. In fact, that year we had 30 days of tour days. And some of them days we had games, and it didn't matter about the preseason game. It was about that 2.5 hour workout, which is mainly defense. And it progressed in us being probably the top defensive team during those periods of time. But Don Nelson would never coach against the Boston Celtics, man. And Larry Bird always had our number.
Okay, so then you were with the Bucks until '88.
Right.
And then, well, it says you were with the Phoenix Suns in '88, but then with the Bulls afterwards. So was that like a partial year or what happened?
It was crazy too, man. It was I'm at the circus with my family in Milwaukee. And we come home after the circus is over, you turn the tube on, and the news flash. Bucks make a trade. I look at my wife, baby, I wonder who they traded. And the phone rings. And I'm like, it's the general manager. And I'm like, all right, man, I already heard, cool. So go to Phoenix, and it's so crazy how small the world is. The Phoenix Suns president and general manager is Jerry Colangelo. Jerry Colangelo went to Bloom High School in Chicago Heights with my family. So he knew that the Bulls wanted me, but the Bucks weren't going to trade me direct 90 miles away. So they sent me on trade deadline day to the Phoenix Suns. And at the time, I'm leading the league in 3-point percentage. And as soon as I get off the plane in Phoenix, I'm on the injury reserve list. And I'm like, man, I'm not hurt. But we're not going to the playoffs, so it's cool. This is like a vacation time for me. So I got we're not going to the playoffs, so we might have 15 games left. I have to be at least 5 on the injury reserve. So coming back after that, it's just a matter of me sitting on this 3-point percentage title again and not knowing what the next season is going to lead to. So come back, and right before training camp is about to start, we go into training camp. And then early in the season, Jerry Colangelo calls me in the office and says that, yeah, we would love to have you as an insurance policy, but I think it's a trade that you might like. And I'm like, what you talking about, Jerry? He's like, yeah, I can send you to Chicago if you want to go. I'm like, brother, come on, man, give me that ticket so I can go home. And he was like, I thought you would want to go home and play. Good luck and go make it happen. And after that, it was all good, man.
Okay, so you joined the Chicago Bulls.
Yes.
In '88.
Yes.
And at that point, they didn't have any championships under their belt.
Not at all. We were, at that point in time, the Bulls were, I would say, they were a team that we had eliminated in Milwaukee 2 years running, first round. So it was one of those things where they were struggling to get to mid-playoff range. And, with Michael was the foundational piece that you needed. But when they brought me in, it was a thing that Michael needs help. So they brought me in, and initially I was coming off the bench, and then I was in the starting lineup. So it was a natural progression, man. And playing under Doug, it was almost a roller coaster. Even though he's a great coach, it was always emotional, whether you won or lost. And it was always a thing where you wanted to be on your point, what you want to be as a professional, but it's a certain environment that's conducive to, the players that you have and their temperament and how you build a chemistry that can take you to a championship.
Well, these days, most people consider Jordan to be the greatest of all time. But in the early days, from what I heard from players that played with him and against him and so forth, people weren't really looking at Jordan like that. When you first started playing with him, did you see the greatness, or was he just another really good player?
No, for me, when I was in Milwaukee, I recall we were in the playoffs, like I told you. And this is probably 2 or 3 years before we became teammates. And we were going through layup lines, and we happened to meet at half court, and we dapped each other up. And I tell him, yo, brother, when we get together, we're going to win championships, and then we go back to our layup lines or whatever. And I knew that. I knew that for whatever reason, we were going to get a chance to play together. But when I got here, I saw he had already had the magnetism of who MJ is, the charisma and all of that, the endorsements. He had his entourage of security and agents or whatever. But when all of that is taken away and we practice it, you can see who he was. For me, having been in the league 6 years at that point in time, having played with Sidney Moncrief, Bill Walton, Terry Cummins, I had played with superstar and Hall of Fame players. And to see my brother up close and personal on a daily basis, practice against him, go heads up, I knew what he was and who he was, and as far as him being perhaps the greatest player to play the game. And to know that what I saw in practice was the same stuff that I faced in the game, but now I saw it in practice. So I knew what it was about. And it was fun, man. I wasn't afraid of it by no chance, man. It's one of those things where level of competition is level of competition. Either you rise to it or you don't. And on a daily basis, he's going to bring what he's going to bring. Now, you're going to rise to the level that you're going to rise to the level, or you're going to feel it bullied. It's going to be how you take it. It's similar to when you're growing up in the park playing with older people and they're just playing aggressive. And you're like, man, these old dudes, they play so wild. No, they're not playing wild, man. They just playing aggressive, dude. And you just got to learn that every level gets more aggressive.
Well, In the documentary The Last Dance, you see him, what some people would consider abuse towards his fellow players, especially in practice and stuff like that. You know, like, shoot it, hoe, and bitch, you ain't gonna make it, and that type of stuff. Did you experience any of that yourself?
Oh yeah, on every level, not just with MJ. That's league wide, man. That's league wide. Nobody is harder on you on a professional level than your teammates. So I guarantee you, if a baseball player is going through a batting slump, some of his teammates coming by telling him, man, you can't get your way out of a wet paper bag. And it's the same thing on the pro level. Oh, man. So we would have shooting games, and somebody's going through a shooting slump, and you tell them, coach, don't put him on my team. So it would be times on how are you going to bring your muster to make sure that you're ready. And that's the thing that I applaud Scotty and Horace and BJ and Stacy and Scott Williams on how they accepted understanding what this thing is about work and how you come to work every day, and this is your workplace, this is your work environment, and this is how we get out. And when MJ may throw some jabs at you, I'm your big brother, I'll take that jab. And now, yeah, brother, we ready to come at your ass. Let's go. And it wasn't going to be no thing where we going to have any type of clicks in this thing. Yeah, you the big money maker, but inside this little thing that we call practice, it's a hierarchy, and it's one motherfucker, and that's Phil Jackson. You feel me? So that's all of this last dance shit is all his last dance. But the reality of it is, Phil Jackson ran the team, Johnny Bach ran the defense, Tex Winter ran the offense. Everybody else fell in line, MJ included. So if you want to talk about him dissing people, what about the disses that he caught from Phil Jackson, Tex Winter, Johnny Bach, that ain't brought up in that, except one time when he says Tex throws something at him, and Tex would always throw jabs at him, just to keep him in line of knowing that you big, but you ain't bigger than this game. And I think that's the part of this last dance that needs to be encapsulated, is that the game of basketball, brother, the game of basketball is bigger than you. Now, you can do what you want to, your logo can do it, but brother, the game is still going to be here when we gone, long gone, and generations from now, they're going to be thinking about LeBron James, and it's going to be, you follow me? So let's keep it real.
Well, you were with the Bulls during the whole Bad Boys rivalry. Didn't you grow up playing with Isaiah?
I grew up playing. The wild part is, the brother I spoke of earlier, Raymond McCoy, he and Isaiah played against one another from the time they were teenagers, early teens, 12, 13, that kind of stuff. I never played against Isaiah until I got an NBA. And it was so crazy. One of the first, we're ball goes up, we're guarding each other or whatever. On this one possession, it was so like one of those moments in time where you're like, okay, either you're going to step to the plate or you're going to be gone, right? Ball bounds out long. He gets the rebound about hash mark in the backcourt. I'm on the other side. We're cross-matched. He takes off, I take off. I know he's going to dunk this. I'm not going to let you go back to the crib and tell everybody you dunked on me. So I'm going to foul you. And that's how it was. And when I fouled him, it was like, that was a good foul, Hodge. And from that point on, it was welcome me to the league on that level, So it was one of those things. That was our first contact. And man, we had great competitive battles. And Tex calls it the battles within the battles. That I know that the Bulls would have never won a championship without Craig Hodges just being on the team. Whether me and Isaiah had any workings, he understood the mentality of me coming from here, that I was going to infuse that the same way you infused them bad boys with the Chicago mentality, because that's what it is. How many people on that team were from Detroit? You follow me? That it was a Chicago thing that he took, that he was able to say, you know what, man, we getting ready to play this ghetto ball. Take his ass out there every time. That wasn't no Chuck Daly. You follow me? That Chuck, yeah, it might have been. But I understand how we play at the park when somebody getting off. You got to let, nah. And so when when that whole vibration of Bad Boys and Isaiah, but Isaiah's the good cop in Lambert. No, man, that's a mentality, and that's my boy. I appreciate him for what he's doing in the community, but you still the Bad Boys, and you accepted that. So in accepting that, we were able to decapitate that bullshit.
Well, how bad did it get? Because they really went hard at you guys.
Yeah, they went and seeing like me and Rick Mahorn, we had a conversation. Rick Mahorn backpicked me and didn't stand me up. And when I say stand me up, is backpick me but hold me up. This time he backpicked me and whiplashed me and kept going. After the game, I'm looking for him. And from the standpoint that, brother, I got family. Now, depending on your response, and he didn't know, man, come on, man. And he like, Hodge, it wasn't like that. And from that point on, it was like that, where Rick Mahorn would stand you up. But then you have some of the assholes like Lambert, where you have to go, have to make sure when you running through the paint that you wasn't catching a flying. You know what I'm saying? So it was certain things that those would have been flagrant fouls today, where back in the day, Larry Bird and Dr. J go to blows, and it wasn't no technical call, because during that period of time, it was a standard understanding. The only time you can really get fouled is with the basketball, and it was an understanding of no harm, no foul. So if wasn't nobody harmed in that fighting shit, let's stop playing, man, and get back to this thing. And that's a different mentality of the physicality that was a game from the late 70s, to early and mid 90s.
Well, when Detroit walked off the court in 1991,
yes,
how did you feel when that happened?
Oh man, that was the coronation to our championship. That was the coronation to the throne. The fact that it was almost like they was pulling that carpet up to the championship for us. That y'all walking out is an actual affirmation that we didn't kick y'all ass, and that all in the ass whoopings y'all thought y'all was just gonna give us in perpetuity. Nah, brother, that ain't happening, dude. We got you, and we understood that it wasn't anything about y'all being that much better than us. It was just that we weren't mature enough and ready to win. And then once we became mature enough as a group to understand that all that old physical job is just because y'all not as good as us. Now we go ahead and play our game, and y'all gonna be eliminated in 4 games.
Okay, so then in 91, the Bulls get to the championships.
Yes.
And you guys played the Lakers with Magic Johnson.
Absolutely.
Well, before game 1, you actually approached both Jordan and Magic.
Right.
And you suggested that the teams not take the floor.
Right.
As a protest to the social injustice that's happening with black people in America.
And see, it wasn't just and that's I think my position at that point in time was we didn't have black owners, black management, black executives. At that point in time, we have an opportunity with 21 of the 24 athletes. And that's one of the things I was talking to Horace Grant about that this morning, because he called me to get clarification. And I was telling Horace, I was like, brother, when I was talking to y'all in 1991, half of y'all was looking at me like I had my third eye literally outside of my head. So when I would ask y'all, brothers, what about us boycott? It was so cursory to y'all. It was so like nonsensical. It was just a fleeting thought. So when I brought it to Magic and MJ, y'all didn't take it serious. I know y'all didn't. So it was, once again, it was serious to me. But in hindsight, could I have done it by myself and just sat down, but sacrifice that moment of work? Nah. And it wouldn't nobody care. So for me, I understood how they looked at it at that period of time, and I saw how easy it was for them to cast aside the fact of how much power y'all truly have. That y'all actually got power to make these changes, but y'all don't even consider it as a serious thought process. Y'all don't even consider it to look at in 1963 when Jerry West and Elgin Baylor said that we were going to boycott the All-Star game, and we got a Players Association out of that. So their willingness to do it back then in 1963 gives you the ability to be Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan and whoever else has come after them, because we have all garnered on the sacrifices that those two players that we know of, let alone the unsung players that we don't know about who sacrificed so that we could get this bread that we making today.
Well, when you brought up the whole boycott, Jordan told you were crazy.
Mm-hmm. And Magic said
Magic Johnson,
too extreme.
That's too extreme.
Mm-hmm. And you look at it. And to me, it was apropos for during that period of time. Look at the era that we was coming out of. The late 1970s, for those who don't know, was the NBA was teetering on collapse because it was too black. White supremacy racism was the bastion of sports. So those who come sit in the stands didn't want to come and watch brothers with gold chains, a whole team of the New York Knickerbockers, because they was an all-black squad. So you coming out of that. The NBA, who is a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate, understands marketing and appeal. 1978-79, you had the best thing that ever happened to basketball. You had Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. You have them playing in the national championship, so you have the good and bad rivalry set up for America. Black versus white, good versus evil. Whoa, we can make a shoe campaign out of this, Converse. You follow me? Now, marketing collective with basketball. Don't make any political statements. Don't do anything that's going to rock the boat on this commercial venture that we have. And y'all got a big part to play in this economically if we handle it right. If we don't make it too. Let's remain apolitical. So you have never seen the NBA Players Association come out in helping anybody on a political level, whether it was good, bad, or indifferent. We are apolitical organization, even though politics affects us so gratefully, but we won't say anything about that. So there was a group and cadre of players who came in the league at a period of time. I'm going to say 7 to 8 years. Magic, Bird, Isaiah, MJ, Barkley. You follow me? Who are the faces of the league. All right? Those faces in the league, how much did they say about 900 murders in the city of Chicago? Rodney King. Where y'all at? And now, I'm saying where y'all at from the standpoint of when Isaiah says that if Larry Bird was a brother, he'd just be average. But because he's white, he's considered a certain kind of thing. And he backed up off of that. You know what I'm saying? Because the powers of be say, hey, you better go apologize. You better go apologize. Who told you to apology? Who told you to make that apology? Or was it because you could see a certain amount of energy coming at you that could affect your bottom line, could affect you moving into upper management, could affect, and that's what happens to us, that our consciousness stops when a dollar is concerned. We don't give a fuck about black folks when money is to be made. And that saddens me, but it sickens me for our ancestors, because none of our black would have earned a dime. We still be in slavery had it not been for the sacrifices of some before us. So all of us, I tell people, and I say it now, until hopefully we come out of quarantine more courageous, more mature, unafraid and unapologetic, not about just unapologetically black, not that garbage, but unapologetic about right causes, about right human issues. What side are we on? Why is it that we can be dying at a level from this virus, but we still selling gym shoes? We're not telling our people go to the crib and study, research, drink some water, study why and how this is affecting you and your blood type and your bloodstream. What should you be vibing on? What should you be eating? Or should I just be vibrating on how much I can consume this product? How much revenue has been made from this last dance? Why now? Why are people lined up in Atlanta buying gym shoes? And I'm looking at it. I don't know when it happened. My son told me it was 5 days at a period of time while the last dance was going on. And I'm looking at it. I'm saying, brother, why don't you tell our people to go to the crib and hold down on that? But I'm listening to Max Kellerman He says, oh, I understand why Michael, it's a great marketing. Yeah, but it's great for what? It's deadly. For who? Not you. But because your people aren't suffering the way mine are and have. But the way that black folks have suffered, we are not supposed to talk about it or discuss it because it's not happening to the mainstream. And it's sickening, brother.
Well, the first Jordan sneaker came out in 1984. Mm-hmm. By 1991, Jordans were like the hottest thing anywhere.
Come on.
You actually try to push Jordan to leave Nike and start his own sneaker company.
Absolutely.
That was going to provide sneaker production.
Just and to let people know who know, we was in the Berto Center. And he was getting ready to sign a deal with Nike. I don't know which deal this was, but I know it was one of those deals where at this point in time, brother, you can make a break. You can make a break. You can make a break from the traditional marketing campaign. You can make a break from those who have maintained a measure of control economically, where our dollars doesn't circulate within our community, where in fact, if you would go to every community in America, and this is what I told the brother, if you go to every community in America at that time, they would give you a factory for $1. The means of production with your wealth, with your backing, we can get the means of production from Asia, as opposed to having sweatshops in Asia because it's okay. It's okay to have enslavement as long as we don't see it, as long as it ain't visible to the American public and the American consuming public. So I tell the brother, I say, look, man, we can get the factory for $1. We can get the means of production from Asia. And all the rubber is coming from under the feet of black people. And you don't think that we can mesh those three together? And now we got a ready-made workforce standing on the corner selling dope. You can't tell me that we can't swap that dope for a Michael Jordan gym shoe and people gonna go for it. He tells me, who gonna know me in 10 years? Think about that. Now, you telling me that was 88, 89, between 88, 89, 90. All right, he's been on the market 5 years with that job. I'm saying, who is Chuck Taylor? Who the hell was Chuck Taylor? We buying Canvas Converse like crazy. I know he didn't have no game like you. So what do you mean they ain't gonna remember you? But once again, that's the mentality of knowing that he didn't know that he was gonna be MJ. They told us in the first segment, it was made, okay, Michael Jeffrey Jordan was a product of that union of mother and father. Came from mother's womb as Michael Jeffrey Jordan. MJ is a Frankenstein monster created by white supremacy racists who have made that into a model that's able to be consumed by the world under a black face. Under a black face. Now, the brother most talented and one of the most gifted we didn't have, perhaps beside Muhammad Ali. But look at the difference. Look at the difference in platforms. Look at the difference in deliverance of humanity. Look at the difference. Look at the difference in what matters to those two champions and great models for the entire planet. Which one would you choose for your baby?
Well, I remember in an interview I did last year with John Sally, I talked about how to this day, Michael Jordan, with everything that he did for Nike, although he made hundreds of millions of dollars, he is not one of the major Nike shareholders to this day. And John Sally's answer was, they don't want the captors with the kings. Michael Jordan is not one of the top shareholders of Nike.
Nope.
I saw a rundown, and he's not even on the list in terms of top shareholders. He's made a lot of money with them.
They made a lot more with him.
They made a lot more with him.
Yeah.
He is not one of the main owners of Nike at all.
Which makes sense. You don't want any of the captive coming from the cages to be up with the emperor. It's just not how it works.
Hey, kudos. Brother understands it. And see, Man, it's through it's in happen. See, you can only get so high. You can't be white. You can be a billionaire, but you can't sit and see. That's until America and the world looks at that problem of those who sit and make policy, make laws, make innuendo that we follow, we model after, we become those models of success that are to the detriment of common people, to common children. How can you look at a Michael Jordan and tell a child you can be that? How? How can you be that? Now you can be a great athlete. You can be a great athlete, but certain mechanisms have to hit in this blockchain of things in order for you to become that marketable to the entire planet, and it be palatable for you to be marketable, because not every great athlete is marketable like that, and they have just as much talent. I remember having a conversation one time. It was like four of us, MJ included, and the conversation came up about Clyde Drexler, and MJ said this, and I quote, "Clyde Drexler is just as good as me. He just don't know how to play the game." Do you follow me? And we ain't talking about basketball. And that was the question. What do you mean? You know what the fuck I mean. Point blank. All right? Now, that lets you know that it's a bigger picture that I want my people to see, man. I understand the documentary. I understand what it was for. It gave us some light into some of the background stuff. But now we got to put a light on consciousness. We got to put on light on the deliverance. Like for me, right now, one of the biggest things is that we have to realize where we are right now so that our movement, and not know, hard to screen the move. No, our movement as individual beings is in right timing with where we are on a spiritual consciousness level. The woman it's her influence now. And I got sisters that, I'm with the sisterhood because I understand where it is now. It ain't about us no more. It ain't about him. That's why it's called The Last Dance. And now I'm saying why it's called The Last Dance, because it's the last dance for men taking charge of this thing and having a dictatorial mindset on all fronts, man. And that's good. I thank you for this, Vlad, because you brought light to me on this one, just by this whole Last Dance thing. And then I told my brothers I told Horace Grant yesterday, I understand why you upset, but don't let that anger or energy not turn out into the positive that it came to for us. Because what it's done is that it shed light on him that, brother, when you call Scotty selfish. But did you see Scotty in the Utah series when he had back problems? He took a pick for you, fell on the floor for you, set another pick for you, come up. That's not a selfish move. That's not a selfish thought. That's not a selfish process. So I would never expect Scotty to have an interview and say that, man, Michael shot more balls than anybody. And that was a selfish action. We never said that brother was selfish, even though we gave the ball to you and we had chances to take rips, and you got your roll going, brother. You got your roll going. But what about when we get our roll going? 1992, I'm a 3-time NBA three-point shooting champion, brother. I'm a 2-time world championship, brother. I'm your teammate when you was going through them battles. John Paxson wasn't on the court with you when I was out there with you when you shot the shot against Cleveland. I was out there with you, brother. But you did, John Paxson. You had David Falk do John Paxson's last contract, but he couldn't holler at Hodge. Why? Them are my questions. Why wasn't I interviewed for your thing? And I'm asking you right now on Vlad TV. I'm doing a documentary and a movie, brother. And I'm asking you, I want to interview you. I want to interview you, not in clothes. I want to interview you to the people. I want them to hear what we talk about. I don't want there to be no Craig said this, MJ that. That's our problem now. That's the problem now. That's why they allow this job to come off the way it comes off. That we're going to promote this. Why? Y'all did this 20 years ago. And you're coming out right now when our people are dying the way they're dying. We need something to vibe on. So Trump says we need sports back. So wasn't no sports going on? Okay, let's, we got it. We got that in the can. Let's bring that. Oh yeah, hey, we can sell some more shoes too. You feel me? And now, this is my brother. My brother comes out with a campaign called Unite, all right? Zion Williamson comes out with the Unite campaign. What do you need? What are you uniting, brother? Is this documentary uniting in its essence? But in fact, it's uniting outside on a spiritual level because you hurt so many people by bringing it like that. The people that you hurt are feeling and talking to one another. So in some ways, God works in mysterious ways, brother. So that negative that you put out here in so many ways is creating a positive influence regardless of that, because even with that negative influence of some of the stuff that you brought to our squad that we covered for you and we would never talk about, but that energy was there because you are Michael and we are the Jordanaires. So the Jordanaires had to help you win championships. Not that we won. We helped you win. You was the only one that won, according to the last dance.
Well, were you around when Jordan said Republicans buy sneakers too?
Yeah, man. Yeah. And see that whole, and see, it's so funny to me how when that was all going on, man, we hooping. That was a little side note. MJ said, whatever. All right. Let me show you how heavy this is. If he wouldn't have said nothing, just took a picture with Harvey Gantt, because your mother asked you to support him first. So that would have been, all right, Mom, let's take this picture real quick. What's up, brother? Harvey, vote for him. All you would have been done with it. No. You want to bring into the Republicans buy gym shoes. Brother, I asked this question. If you wouldn't have said jack about Republicans buying gym shoes, now, did Republicans stop buying gym shoes? Did Democrats stop buying gym shoes? Because, you feel me? Ain't nobody stopped buying shit. You are who you are. You know it. He knows it. Everybody in the world knows it. You ain't going to stop buying your shoe because you got a political belief. You ain't never had no political belief about nothing. So why now? And it's going to be just like it was. And with that circus, that is Michael Jordan's, like everybody else that's a superstar, it's a fucking circus. So in that circus, it's a daily news cycle, man. You know how it is, man. That's just, yeah, we want to highlight, okay, somebody has a new breaking news. It's gone. So it's how much you want to make of it. And you can make the most of it, and then to make the most of it and not really speak to the issue, not really speak to the underlying issue. The underlying issue is that Helms was an avowed racist, brother. You know what I'm saying? Jesse Helms, an avowed racist. And you got to question that? No, his comment should have been, not Republicans buy gym shoes, racists buy gym shoes. That's what it should have been. Because that's what it boiled down to. It wasn't about no Republican or Democrat. That's a ploy too. That's a ploy. That's the number one ploy on the planet. Republican. If you stop and you look at this garbage that's going on now, how can you give out so much money now and you couldn't have gave that shit out 10 years ago? How you giving people $1,200, $2,000? Hey, we got, you need some bread? Come on, get it. And you know what? This is what else we're going to do. We're going to make the interest rate so low. Come on, corporate America. You can come in and get all this money and you can go buy all your stock back and make the stock market look like it's going through the roof, even though the people ain't got no food. It's food lines. It's 30 million people unemployed. What are you looking at? What is real? What is the real value of anything in the world right now? What is the truth? Everything you told me was the truth is now I'm seeing it was a lie. Everything. So what is what and who is going to bring this value to reality that give us a real value of life? So you telling me life means something. You telling me to tell my children life means something, but you're not funding it. You're not funding it. You're not funding it. You're funding corporate bailouts. You're funding banks. You're funding hedge funds. You're funding things that these babies will never get to touch. will never be a reality in their existence other than what you take from their lifeline, from their bloodstream, from their, man, where I sit at today, man, I'm in a food desert, brother. I could walk down the street and get a gun before I get a head of lettuce. Do you know what I'm saying? It kicked me in my back because I'm looking at what we did in 1990, man. It's the same thing. And I'm saying, dude, how you not gonna bring me in on something that you knew in depth of what we working on? So my question becomes that when you bring out the Zion Williamson whole advertising campaign, it's around Unite. And I'm like, where that brother get that logo from? Him and the eye is his Jumpman logo. And I said, brother, let's go back and see where it came from. And what does it mean? And what does Unite mean in your world when you're talking about this young brother who's the #1 draft, putting on Nike shoes, putting on brand Jordan? Are we unifying people? What does anything can be done impossible alone together? Come on, man. These whole campaigns, don't let it be something that's shabby when people have died for unifying our folks, man. And we got to make sure that this next generation is utilizing your resources to change the condition of where you came from on a positive quality base where your dollars can create dollars regenerating the community, flowing in the community. So that now, like the model that LeBron James is using, love it, because it's one of those things where he's putting money where it needs to be done, and resources and people are able to see the root and the fruit of his labor.
Well, you guys end up beating the Lakers in the finals. You beat them 4-1,
Right.
which I kind of felt marked the end of the Magic Johnson era and the beginning of the Jordan era.
Right.
At that point. How did it feel to finally have a ring?
Man, and once again, when you playing games, that's why people ask me who the GOAT is, and they kind of get mad at me. I say it's Bill Russell because he won more than anybody. And that winning is what it's all about, man. You can go play on the corner and play pickup or whatever. You can play one-on-one. It's about who has the most numbers. And for me to know that we did and played as hard as we possibly could, and after we won that game against LA, we still had enough energy in our tank, man. Felt like we could have probably played another series. But the mindset was such that, we refused to lose, man, as a group. And then we knew we had that black cat that you had to be up by 14 at least in the last 2 minutes if you were going to beat us, because he and Scotty was going to get at least 4 or 5 steals to keep us in the game or get us back in the game.
So you guys win the finals in June of 1991. 6 months later, in December of 1991, you had a completely crazy incident hit the media where your ex-wife, Carlita Hodges, I guess doused you in gasoline and threw 2 matches at you to try to light you on fire?
Yeah, that's those dysfunctional domestic shits that go down, man. And the beautiful part for me more than anything else, man, is to be able to sit here and talk to you on this level, and to know that my sons, who were babies at that time, basically elementary school age, and are here now to be my sidekicks, man, my business partners, to know that they were able to be functional citizens and are doing good things, man. That personal shit that goes on in the lives of celebrities and sports people and all of that kind of job, it is what it is, I did mine, I experienced it, and I had a great support base, man. And that's the part where, once again, I say, my family was able to support me during that period of time on so many levels, whether it be taking the boys out of harm's way and keeping them where their minds were settled on education, or just them calling in to make sure that I was straight, So from that standpoint, I know I had a great support system and continue to have a great support base, so that, those type of things, I wonder what other athletes would have done during those periods of time, and what they've been able to sustain themselves in such a way where you could continue your research and understanding that, Lord forgive them for they know not what they do, and that you're able to move forward from that point knowing that that's their mom, and that I don't want them to see their mom in any other ugly kind of light. I'm not going to put in that light. If the world does, that's on the world, but that's not on how I want them to ever view their mom. I want them to view their mom with respect and dignity like you're supposed to, because that's what it's about. our personal thing was our personal thing. And, you know, for me, it was just definitely the thing that it made more than anything for me is made me take myself less serious. It made me look at life and, you know, from a standpoint that the things that are really meaningful, you know what you got control over. And you can handle it as best you can. And those things that you don't have control over, let it happen, man, and be ready to deal with it if it comes about. But for me, it was definitely a moment of maturity. It was a moment of clarity and realizing what's meaningful in life and how short life could possibly be, and that you got to go forward and do what is meant for you to do. And obviously, it wasn't meant for me to be hurt in any kind of way on that day because, man, I walked away unscathed, and now we're cool from the standpoint that we can speak to one another. You know, we love our sons and our grandbabies. So it's a blessing, brother, to even be able to realize what went down and live through it, man, and know and accept it for what it is.
Well, I guess years later, she did some interviews, and she said that around that time she was having an affair with R. Kelly, and she actually bought him his first keyboard and drum machine using your money.
Yeah, and like all of that, man, you know. And for me, it's funny, you know what I'm saying, man. I can laugh at it. I can really laugh at it, brother, because for one, it's like I know where my mindset was. I understand what our livelihood was about. I understood what our money was about. I understood what the future was about. In fact, I had no problem helping R. Kelly, none at all, because my brother-in-law brought him to me, and I saw the talent in it right away, to the point where I took him in front of Terry Cummings and a lot of other people who were music guys at the time. So it wasn't like soon as she met R. Kelly and it was done and all. Nah, man, this is over a period of time, and over that period of time, I guess she grew an admiration for him, whatever it may be. But for me, it was one of those things that I understood the young brother's talent. I wanted to help him, and in a way, I helped him. But at the same time, I accept it for what it is. I accept her for it. Never apologized or whatever. But her cleansing and her writing and that's cool, man, because that helped her, I'm sure, to be able to lift any burden she may have had from it or whatever. But that, to me, is just one of the things in life that happens. And from that standpoint, I wouldn't want to be that brother for anybody, anything in the world. You know what I'm saying? So I'm blessed, brother, to be sitting here in freedom to a degree, but we're in America, but I'm sitting outside them bars. But, you know, man, I wouldn't want to be that brother. And in a lot of ways, you know, man, God don't like ugly. Don't like ugly on a lot of fronts. And so it is what it is, man. And she wrote what she wrote. My thing is my thing. I'm good, brother.
Okay, so then the next year, you guys get to the finals once again against the Trailblazers.
Yes.
Beat them 4-2.
Right.
You're now a back-to-back NBA champion.
Yep.
How did it feel to win that second championship?
And, you know, that's the beauty, man, is that we won our first one on the road. So you want to party right away but you got to wait till you get back to Chicago. This one, it was a blessing to be in the city and win it at home. So for me, I had a connection with the Chicago Housing Authority, and they had their midnight basketball league during that period of time. And so what I did was right after the game, took a bunch of championship T-shirts and hats, and went to the midnight basketball league. And it was wild when you show up and they young brothers, they looking like, man, we just saw you on TV. And for me, it was a cool situation because it was a way to actually share with those people who were never get a chance to come to the arena, to come hang out, to be able to be part of the championship celebration, even though I know they were our biggest support base, man. You know, ain't nobody supporting us more than the brothers and sisters in the hood. Nobody supported us more than the seniors. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it was, as opposed to just doing my own thing, having my cigars, popping my bottles, go get a chance to do that. But right now, it was cool to be able to be at the crib, share with our brothers and sisters in the projects and the areas that wouldn't get a chance to see it, and be able to do it like that, man, because we got control over the choices that we make to do things that we don't do or do.
Okay, so after you win the first championship
Right.
in '91, you guys, the team goes to the White House.
Right.
Now, did Jordan not go to the White House?
Jordan didn't go. He said,
But no
"Fuck
one
it."
made a fuss. No one made a fuss over that,
No.
which is interesting.
No, it's not interesting. It is what it is because, once again, you are who you are. You follow me? His comment was, I want to play. I want to take some time, spend with my family. Wouldn't play golf. Did his thing. Righteous, you got your time. Do what you want to. You got a choice to make. I can choose not to go. Pax didn't go. John Paxson didn't go either. But he didn't go because he did an NBA Cares program that had been scheduled. Because we won in June. So we didn't know that we weren't going to go into October. So we were in training camp and getting ready to be in training camp or whatever. So when we had a chance to go, for me, I thought we were going June. We were going to go in June. So I had my dashiki ready to go in June, but I would not have written a letter had we went in June. And that's the wild part about, how time is, and that it was over a game of ping pong the night we were to go that it hit me that I done wrote a letter to every one of my Congress people, to my mayors, and now I'm getting ready to go to the White House. Let me write a letter to the president. And my boy was like, man, you sure you want to do that, bro? I'm like, man, come on, man. This is America. You know what I'm saying? This is 1991. How can I not? Man, I'm a world championship. I done won two 3-point titles. What could happen? And I wasn't even, and that never came to mind. Once he said that, brother, please, I just went to writing. But knowing the history of John Carlos, Tommy Smith, Muhammad Ali, knowing the vein of Kirk Flood, and knowing that there are going to be challenges. There are going to be tasks that's going to be put in front of you that either you're going to be able to deal with on a level that's going to be something that you ain't never thought you was going to have to deal with, and it's going to test you. And those are the type of choices that a lot of us refuse to make because we want it comfortable. We want to be able to I want nice shit for my family. You know what I'm saying? Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, we have a certain line that I ain't gonna cross, man, to get bread. And I ain't gonna sell my people out for no cost. None at all. And that was just something that I was raised on, and that's something that I can't compromise.
Okay, so you go and handwrite a letter
Right.
to George H.W. Bush, and you hand it to him. Number one, what exactly did the letter say?
Well, basically, it stated, knowing that we're getting a chance to go meet the most powerful person on the planet, and I want to present the causes of those less fortunate, those who are disenfranchised, the poor, homeless, and specifically the African American community, and those of us who know, the struggles of those who have gone before us. And I just, wanted to write something on behalf of my mom and her generation and all the freedom fighters and all the people who had died and gave us hope to move forward. And that's what it basically entailed, man. It wasn't anything, a lot of people speculated what it was about. I'll make sure I get you a copy too, man. And it was wild, man, just to see how, for me, it was the most important letter I've ever written in my life to this day. And because it represented not only me, I feel like I represented every part of America, man. Not just, even to those who are rich and feeling downtrodden for whatever reason, man. You was in that letter. If you're a poor person, you were disenfranchised, you were Native American, you were in that letter. And the spirit of the letter was written as such. And that, when I talk to the people at George Bush Library, since I've been doing my documentary and books and book stuff, they've been cool as a fan, man. I'm talking about help me, send me pictures, all the stuff, and when the lady the first interaction I had with the sister at the library, she read the letter and she was tripping. She was like, "Oh, this is awesome, Mom. How many copies?" It was cool just to see how somebody from a whole different generation, she seemed to be 23, 24, maybe an intern from school or something. And, that you could tell that now people can realize what I was speaking about and not hold any grudge about one way or the other. That had it been during the social media age, it would have went viral. You know what I'm saying? if we would, like Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf and myself, had we had the base of support that Colin Kaepernick had with social media during that period of time, it would have been a different story, man. I think, and it's funny how that was George H.W. Bush, and then when I was shooting coach with the Lakers and we won 2 championships, they went to the White House when Barack was there, and I didn't get to go. I was the only person. Check this out. I was the only person in the entire organization. They took 2 planes, man. They took 2 planes, and I didn't get to go. And it was funny to me because the trainer, Gary Beatty, is trying to figure out how he's going to tell me, right? But for the last 3 days, everybody is walking around bouncing off the walls. How they getting ready to go see Barack. And they got these itineraries and all this shit. And I still ain't got none of it. So the day before they leaving, he slides over to me. Yeah, Hodge, I need to talk to you, man. You know, we getting ready to go to the White House. I say, Gary, I know I ain't going, man. I say, tell Barack, I said, what's happening though? I done been already. I'm good.
How did Bush react when you handed him that letter?
No, see, what they told me was I told our PR person that I had a letter for the president. And when I told him that, he said he would find out the proper protocol. And they told me that I couldn't hand anything directly to the president. So I gave a letter to the press secretary, and they said he would get it to the president. But I never had any response back. But I told him when we took pictures and we were shooting in the Rose Garden, I told him that I had wrote a letter, and I gave it to his press secretary, and I would appreciate it if he considered what was written in the letter. And he was cool, man. He was like, he was surprised that I wrote a letter. He was like, oh, really? I was like, yeah, you know, when you get a chance, I hope you get a chance to read it. And he was like, oh, I'll do that. And kept about it. And it was cool. It was good for me, man. I'm telling you, man, that day, wearing my garments, once I gave the letter, to just sit and think about the magnitude of all of that we just did, whether it be the championship, whether it be going to the White House, it was a certain culmination of it all coming together that really solidified things for me.
Okay, so here you are. You just handed George H.W. Bush a letter. You're 32 years old.
Yes.
You're coming off of 2 championships. You have 2 3-point shooting championships.
I have 3.
Three 3-point championships as well. And you get dropped by the Bulls.
Right.
And no team calls you.
Not at all.
Do you think that was in retaliation to that letter?
Absolutely, man. And you know what's so funny about it is that as we sit here, it'll be like somebody pulling, you can't do Vlad TV tomorrow. Starting tomorrow, you can't do no more Vlad TV. And you'd be like, man, look at my credentials, man. I done did 12 years of this. I got a library of work. How is my work not going to be enough to be able to get another job? That was me. I was happy, in fact. I'm like, man, I'm an unrestricted free agent. I have 10 years of service. I made $600,000 this year. I have to make 125% more than I made. So I'm good. I'm thinking this is getting ready to be my payday. I told you when we started with 40 grand. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it was like, oh man, we get ready to get paid, get ready to do some stuff with the family. But at the same time, I understood that I could take, if I made $5 million, I could leverage $4 million within the community and do programmatic stuff and still get interest on that money. You know what I'm saying? So certain things that I had in my mind that I was going to do that I had talked about that I think may have frightened some people, that if we give this brother this amount of money, certain things might happen. But even that, I'm like, don't you want good stuff to happen? But even that being said, for me, it was wild that Tex Winter, Lord bless his soul, told me, this is like August. Nobody had talked to me. The union said I needed to find an agent that a team owes a favor so they'll know I'm not a bad guy. I say, man, I was player rep for every team, so my teammates trusted me. I never had a fine. I was never late for a plane. I never missed a bus. None of that type of stuff. So when Tex told me that he had called every team in the league about me, and none of them gave me a response back. That's when I knew, something is up. Hodge I might not get no run this season. Now, mind you, that this is a game that you've been playing, man, on a competitive level since you was 12 years old on a real level. And now you're at a point where you're 32 years of age, you're in excellent shape. You done just won these championships, what it's supposed to be about. You're the best shooter on the planet. Who else? Don't nobody shoot the ball like you. And it's a game that is about putting the ball in the basket. And you can't get an agent. And come September, when training camp is about to start, now you know you ass out. No colleagues, you're in that vacuum where you're persona non grata. You know what I mean? And that was a lot to deal with. But once again, like I said, man, I had my sons to keep me balanced as, man, what's really important? Yeah, you could be hooping, but so let's go hoop. You know what I'm saying? So, but just because I can't hoop with Isaiah and Magic, all them cats, let me go put it on y'all. So it was during that period of time that my training regimen of how to train young people about the game took a different mindset. So it was that kind of stuff.
Well, things ultimately went full circle with you because you ended up joining the LA Lakers as a assistant coach working under Phil Jackson once again. And this time you had Kobe on the team.
No question, man. And once again, this is, like you said, it comes full circle. Tex Winter was coming back with Phil Jackson, and Tex told him he wasn't going to come back unless he brought me back with him. So Phil calls me and tells me he's going to have a shooting coach for the first time, and he didn't know anybody that was a better shooter than me. And he wanted me to come back and do what I could to help not only with the guys shooting, but also with guards understanding how to run the triangle. So it was a blessing, man, and to get a chance to work with Kobe on a lot of things, man, just, and to be around him and soak up his personality and energy that he brought to the gym was cool. And learned a lot, and I feel like I helped him with a lot of parts of his game. And as far as realizing certain things, one of the things that I work with him on that really comes to mind is that when you shoot so many balls as a shooter, you have a tendency to recoil at times. And our main thing one word was extension. And extension meant to hold your follow through until you saw the ball go through the net on all shots. And that was something he would come back and tell me he did 85%. He would look at his shots and he would tell me. And it was a cool relationship, man, that he trusted me and the eye that I had, and he would call me the night before to meet him in the gym to give him contact the next morning. So it was cool, man. I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed watching his work habits compared to MJ's, and to see, how much MJ impacted his life and his career, man, and the choices that he made on how he was going to play the game. And you can't leave any of that out without saying the impact that Jelly Bean had in it. And, Jelly Bean being the foundation of it, and us being able to see Kobe was actually us seeing Jelly Bean at the same time.
Well, and you ended up winning 2 championships with the Lakers.
Yes.
So that means you have 4 rings total.
Yes, sir.
Very, very dope, man.
Dope. And when I stop and I trip on that, man, it's funny, man. It's funny when I think about I never won anything until I got to the league. You couldn't tell me that I wasn't going to win a high school state championship. You couldn't tell me that I wasn't going to win a national championship in college. And I recall being a rookie. We're in I forgot where we were playing at, and it's like I think it might either be the last game or next to the last game, but I'm hyped as though we're getting ready to go to the playoffs before the game, before everybody's coming out, and I'm hyped up, and Bill Walton looks at me, he's like, bruh, we're not going to the playoffs, man. And that was such a dash of water on me, and as far as waking me up to the reality of how professional athletes think, that you have those who are championship bound, and then you have those who are vacation bound. You know what I mean? And that it was actually in my mind right there, and I said, damn, man, I don't want to be going on a vacation every year like this. So when I was traded to Milwaukee, knowing that Milwaukee was, they were veteran laden and they had that, playoff cadre behind them all the time. So it was cool to get a chance to go someplace and know you were gonna play.
How badly did it hit you when you found out about Kobe and Gianna's death?
Man, to this day it still does, brother. Just that, man. It's a loss for humanity, man, and that's about the only way to put it, man. And knowing him, you know what I mean, and just knowing him and knowing how intense he was about life, man. His whole thing was carpe diem, seize the day, and that was him, brother. And I think those of us who were blessed to have had a chance to be in this person, be around him, man, and to know who the brother was on the level of to see how he came and how he, and that when I think about people talk about how MJ bullied people, I saw him slap Sasha Vujacic a couple times. You know what I'm saying? And it wasn't a thing of any disrespect, but it was literally a big brother to a little brother, and Sasha accepted it that way. And it was cool to see that Kobe would bring Sasha along more than anybody else in that manner. But they had this thing from overseas where they had spent time together and that nobody really knew about that. That was a big brother, little brother situation, and to see that both of them accepted their responsibilities of it. When Kobe would be a little heavy-handed on it, he'd go grab Sasha around the neck, man. I just want you to be a better pro. And it was great to see Sasha mature into a champion like that.
Yeah, man, quite a loss. Quite a loss that's going to be felt for decades.
Yeah,
to come.
Man, and so much has been written about his thought process. But the brother was one of the most critical thinkers I've ever met.
Yeah, just a loss all around, especially his daughter.
Yeah, man.
Sad. Well, Craig Hodges, I appreciate you coming in and talking.
I appreciate you, my brother.
Yeah, and to me, the most interesting part of the story is what really happened off the court.
Yeah, and my son, he's laughing, talking about me a lot of times. He's like, man, you like Forrest Gump, bro. You done met a lot of, and it's cool, man, that I've been blessed that I've had a chance to meet a lot of my heroes. In fact, Dr. John Carlos, who was part of the 1968 Olympic boycott, he had a chance to talk to him last week, and we're getting ready to start building, man. So I've been blessed to meet my heroes, had a chance to sit down with Nelson Mandela. So, brother, I've been blessed, man. Basketball has given me shit that I'd never imagined, man. So I'm blessed, man. I thank you for this opportunity, and to all your listeners, man, God bless y'all, and make sure you study and come out of this thing more mature people.
Oh, absolutely, man. I can't wait to get you back on.
No doubt, man. Just let me know, man. You got my son's info, man. He'll handle it for us.
Let's do it, man.
All right.
Once again,
peace.
man, all the best to you and your family.
No doubt.
Peace.